Welcome to Fast Effect Double Speed Magic the Gathering. Here we have Jared on Bant Miracles versus the Mog Fanatic himself, Andy Mog on Blue Eons. Alice at 1, which can be a major thorn in the side for most blue decks. However, Bant does have those copies of Prismatic Endings. We'll see if Jared can actually find them or if he'll be shut off by this Chalice. Boom, powering it out on the first turn, along with City of Traders, giving some explosiveness to this mana base. Ancient Tomb, a vintage playable card. Of course, workshops play it now. But even back in the day with Trinisphere running wild in the format, I used to run a copy of it in my control lists, be able to push past the limitations that Trinisphere tried to impose. Made it pretty easy to cast a card like Rack and Ruin. Sylvan Library for Jared looks to bypass some of the damage that Sylvan Library is doing here, giving him card selection. Trading off some life for some card advantage as well. And there it is, the Prismatic Ending, taking out the Sylvan Library. Taking out the Chalice of the Void, I should say. A Ponder immediately after. And probably more important because of the shuffle. Sylvan, basically, without a shuffle, just lets you keep looking at the same cards. Getting those shuffles either from fetch lands or from an effect like Ponder, very welcome. Mox Opal, Lion's Eye Diamond. Into Karn. And there he is. Karn the Great Creator eats a counterspell. Force of Will, always an important card in Legacy. Keeping decks in check, and then here, stopping some of the more explosive breakout plays. Karn could have easily ran away with the game. However, he gets stopped. And Euro shows up, gaining some life. Nicely offsetting life paid with Sylvan Library. Chalice does come back down. However, we have Ice Fang. That card's not inconsequential. That can potentially really screw up the situation with Karn. Being able to chip in for some damage and really slow things down. Karn really likes an empty board. Euro hopping out of the graveyard. Prismatic Ending again. That is just kind of the nature of Bant. Very resilient. It can answer a lot of these problem permanents. Another Karn. Let's see what this ends up being. Snaring Bridge. It's going to be very difficult to get past. Need another Prismatic Ending, essentially. Jared may be feeling like he wished that he had kept that ending. Perhaps that Chalice of the Void wasn't as big a deal as this Ensnaring Bridge. He could move the bridge, he could swing in with that Euro, clear the Karn, be in very good shape. As it is, this Ensnaring Bridge could essentially hold stuff off. Definitely. Abundant Harvest finds a Ponder. The Ponder is cast. It's shuffling. Jared knows he needs something to change the situation. Doesn't have a counterspell. He could just be dead next turn. Really needs a counter, as Mycosynth Lattice, always a threat with Karn. Jace the Mind Sculptor. He brainstorms. Drops a fetch land. Ooh, another Lion's Eye Diamond. Here we go, Karn. Oh, interesting. That sequencing may have been a little soft. Wasn't at the table, so tough to say. Imagine this is going to be just game over on the spot. I don't think Jared's going to be able to do anything to contend with this or break out of it. There's very few things that'll actually let you get out of this. Crumbling Vestige, Elvish Spirit Guide. There are a few things that you can get mana underneath a Karn, and potentially like Nature's Claim, the Mycosynth Lattice, but yeah, there's not too many things. You got to be careful there with the activating of Karn. If you do pass priority, you will not be able to use the Lion's Eye Diamond. If you -2 Karn and your opponent says okay, that is a problem. If you're going to be sacrificing the Lion's Eye Diamond, you really want to announce that you're holding priority, or more accurately, just sacrifice it before you activate the Karn. You really don't want to be in a situation where your opponent feels, perhaps accurately, that you were gaining information by knowing, for example, that you don't have a Stifle or Trick Bind in hand. Probably wouldn't be willing to sacrifice your entire hand if Karn was going to be stifled. Weren't going to get the Mycosynth Lattice, for example. But that is it for game one. This is a tough matchup for both sides of the table. Blue Aeon, an explosive, dangerous deck. I mean, it's combo in a sense. It's mostly just haymakers. I mean, not combo in the way that we traditionally think about it, where you're playing a ton of spells all in one turn. Very often, it's just playing a Karn and casting a Mycosynth Lattice. That can happen. I mean, I guess technically that could happen on the first turn, right? Yeah, pretty easily. That could happen in your opening hand, really. Just Soul Land, 2 Lotus Petals, a Karn, and 2 LEDs. That's first turn Mycosynth Lattice. Of course, that's not generally how you're hoping for it to play out. You'd certainly keep that hand. I mean, you're not going to throw back any turn 1 wins. When it had a Force of Will for the Karn, you'd still be in good shape if you draw something like an Echo. Well, we'll see what Jared can do on the play. Certainly won't be winning on the first turn. Bant, a relentless and slow deck. Answers for everything. Got Endurance, just casually tossing the Force of Will out there. I doubt that was mind games, but it is amusing. An Abundant Harvest to lead things out. Gonna name land or non-land. It's a pretty good card. I mean, if it was blue, like look at that. If that was a Ponder and Jared was on a 1-lander, that would have been a disaster. Instead, it's definitely going to get a land. Really saying something for your cantrips. I think the card is fairly underrated, to be honest. A Force of Will on Emery, so she would have represented a really grindy advantage, being able to get back this Urza's Bauble each turn. Eats a Force of Will. Here. Perhaps asking if Jared would be aware of which card was seen. Both players will be completely aware. Doubt about that. Urza, Lord High Artificer. Saga. Fair enough. Well, the Lord High Artificer does make a construct. He resolves. We got a Brainstorm in response. The Force of Will instead. Double Force stopping Emery and Urza, and now Uro showing up. Well, not quite showing up. Showing up briefly. Now we've got an Urza's Saga. Can make some decent-sized constructs in this deck. Maybe one of the better Urza's Saga construct decks in terms of how large those constructs can get. Got a Brazen Borrower. That is going to bounce Uro, resetting that whole series of events. Emery actually sticking, and both players set up for a grind. Jared has the ability to cast Uro and then potentially escape him. Emery's going to be able to recur this bauble each turn, drawing more cards. Versus bauble, kind of a overlooked card up until recently. I would say now it really feels like an actual legacy card. People have played it throughout the years, but with the ability to recur it with Emery, or of course with the Mystic Forge or Oriok Salvager decks, both of those making great use of the bauble. Zero casting cost card drawing. Emery just doing her best Mishra's Workshop impression, and all sorts of damage coming in. Jared has gained a ton of life with these Euros, but may not matter. And now Echo of Aeons. Another counterspell. I wonder what that 3 is about. Any type of spend. In fact, I believe that was just a Force of Will. Oh, it's Force of Negation. There we go. And Uro showing up. Ooh, Engineered Explosives. That is very strong. Taking out the LEDs, the constructs. Versus Bauble comes back. This is not a race that you're going to win. Attacking for 3 against an active Titan. He's going to be gaining 3 life time. Bauble during the end step. He's another one. Emery getting Urza's Bauble. Brazen Borrower swings, and oof. That is rough. So Endurance actually allowing Emery to get the Bauble and just jamming an Endurance to kill the Brazen Borrower. I don't know which represents the bigger threat. I would think the extra card. I'm gonna scoop it up here. Brazen Borrower can't block, and that ends up being a really bad situation. Facing down the Titan and the 3-power Endurance. That, I mean, it was very close to lethal for sure. May have been actual lethal if there was a Ancient Tomb activation in there that I didn't catch. I suppose Bauble doesn't draw a card till the next turn anyways. So I'm a little surprised to not see the Endurance in response to Emery activation as compared to getting the gotcha moment there. The way Jared's so firmly in control of that game. I mean, that was just taking a very small subset of cards to break out of that, something along the lines of LED and Echo, into just high quality cards. Look at the way this plays out here. We've got a Mox Opal, is active Metalcraft on turn 1 thanks to the Chalice of the Void and Lotus Petal. 4 mana. How do you like me now? We got a turn 1 Chalice and a turn 2 Karn. Opal is temporarily set back. Oh, even more so, as Prismatic Ending takes out the Chalice. Chalice comes right back. Chalice at 1. Does shut off quite a few cards in the deck. The Synod, Battlecraft, Brazen Borrower goes up and starts getting to business. 3 in the air. I don't know that this is likely to work out. We've got a Hull Breacher, which does manage to eat a Force of Will. I gotta say, the aggressive posture does make it more likely for that Hull Breacher to eat a Force. I don't think Jared would be particularly worried about losing to just the Brazen Borrower, if I'm being honest, but that Hull Breacher added in would be a real problem. Euro or Endurance, either one, solve this situation. Jared only has a couple of hits left, though. And Karn resolved. Liquimetal Coating is going to take out one of these lands for now, making it an artifact during Jared's upkeep. There's Uro. Land drop. He'll be able to come out of the graveyard next turn, potentially. Actually, just right now, look at that. Flooding out so hard on mana, up to 8 life. Now with a Titan. Brazen Borrower not capable of bouncing it. Business end of the Brazen Borrower, a 3/1 flyer. Can't block except creatures with flying. Draw 7s plus Hull Breacher. Pretty much plan A with this deck. Is a very fun strategy for the person playing it when it comes together. Not as much for the person on the other side of the table. Pretty common for them to feel like they're going to draw some extra cards, and you'll need to remind them that they're not drawing anything, you're just getting 7 treasures. Psy, Master Thopterist, capable of pulling some young Pyromancer-esque feats. Every one of these artifact spells making a 1/1 colorless Thopter. Now, got the Echo of Aeons. I'll Hull Breacher to go along with it, but looking for some fresh cards. Hoping that this Chalice at 1 nullifies a bunch of these 7 fresh ones for Jared as well. To the Synod. Into Urza, and this is going to be a big boost of mana. The Construct can tap for mana, as can the Chalice. Remember, Urza here allows you to tap the artifacts. It doesn't give the artifacts a tap ability, so Nullrod doesn't really work here at all. Or do you have to worry about Summoning Sickness? Raven Form. Interesting removal. Exiles Uro. That is a huge downgrade of a useless 1/1. So it does potentially slow down this Brazen Borrower. I suppose it can't say it's totally useless, but this Construct, the bigger concern. Construct probably lethal on its own. Sending, and we got a block with Psy, followed by a Terminus. Oh, so close. Game was nearly over. Jared saying he's not so easily dispatched. He's got a Terminus to completely clear the board. However, Construct has returned. At least a 6/6 for more mana for a Karn. Seen a bunch of him this match. Now, he can also get cards from exile. Karn is from outside the game or in exile. Tormod's Crypt can actually be helpful for that. If you do have a key card counterspelled, you can actually just go grab a Tormod's Crypt and crypt yourself to get those cards back online. Mind Sculptor. It's a little bit of help here from Gideon, making a body. A little Super Friends action here for Jared, but not going to lie, I'd rather be on the other side of the board. Karn and Urza, BFFs for a lot longer. Jason Gideon. I think they've got the clear edge, giving a huge mana boost with Urza's static ability, and of course Karn can potentially end the game. Mycosynth Lattice, let's see here. There it is, Karn grabbing Lattice. Force of Negation on the Lattice. That does exile it, so Karn will be able to get that back. Oh, this was actually, the Lattice was grabbed last turn, so he can actually just activate again right away. Yeah, the Lattice was grabbed on the previous turn, so Karn now grabbing that one from exile, and oof, feeling like it would have been so much better if that was a force of will instead of a force of negation. That would have at least potentially bought an extra turn. As it stands, that should do it. And yeah, it looks like we've got the cards being scooped up. That is a lock. Things were not going to get any better from there, as really that construct token was very close to just sealing the deal as it was, as Blue Aeons actually outlasts and outmaneuvers Bant Miracles.